you think Men in Black was just a fun, stylish alien movie? The truth behind it was far more complicated than that. Beneath the polished surface of this hit 1997 blockbuster was a long list of strange behind-the-scenes stories that most fans never knew. Someone almost took away one of its most iconic roles. One star deliberately kept his distance in real life to create real tension on screen. Some of the movie's most memorable scenes were never even in the script, and even the ending had to be hastily reworked at the last minute. The deeper you dig, the less Men in Black feels like a sci-fi comedy, and the more it feels like a carefully hidden mess behind the scenes. So which secret is the hardest to believe? Let's find out. Number 1. Will Smith. It still sounds hard to believe now, because whenever people think of Men in Black, they almost instantly think of Will Smith. The way he walked into that movie with a mix of swagger, mischief, and effortless confidence made Agent J feel inseparable from the franchise itself. But the strangest part is that from the very beginning, he was not the actor originally chosen for the role. Before cameras ever started rolling, Chris O'Donnell was actually the one who had come very close to playing Agent J. It was no longer just talk or early consideration. Things had already moved into real preparation. He had done costume fittings, taken part in script readings, trained for the role, and was practically in position to step into the film. In other words, Men in Black nearly became a completely different movie, with a completely different face standing beside Tommy Lee Jones. Then, just when everything seemed locked in, Chris O'Donnell dropped out only about 2 weeks before filming. That was not some small casting change. It was a massive turning point for the entire movie. Because Agent J was not the kind of role you could casually swap out and hope for the best. That character had to bring the youth, the humor, and the reckless spark that gave the whole story its pulse. Cast the wrong person, and the movie might still function, but it could easily feel flatter, safer, and missing the special edge that made people remember it. What makes it even more interesting is that Will Smith was not even the top priority at that point. So if that last-minute exit had never happened, there is a very real chance he never would have become Agent J at all. And if that had happened, Men in Black probably would not have become the phenomenon we know today. Because the film's success did not just come from aliens, strange weapons, or a secret world hidden beneath the city. It also came from one thing Will Smith brought into it: the feeling that no matter how chaotic things got, he could still make it all feel fun, cool, and alive. Some movies work because of the concept, but some movies become iconic because, at the last possible moment, they end up with exactly the right person. Men in Black was one of those cases. Number 2. Tommy Lee Jones deliberately kept his distance from Will Smith. One of the strangest things behind Men in Black is that the icy distance between Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith at the beginning of the movie may not have been entirely acting. When you watch it again, the contrast between these two characters is impossible to miss. Agent J is fast-talking, young, cocky, and always feels like he is 1 second away from breaking the serious tone. Agent K, on the other hand, is cold, dry, and almost seems unwilling to let anyone into his world. What makes this story so interesting is that in real life, Tommy Lee Jones was reportedly trying to keep that exact same distance from Will Smith during the first few weeks of filming. He did not go out of his way to chat, did not try to build warmth, and did not create the feeling that these were two co-stars happily getting to know each other. For someone like Will Smith, who naturally has a very open and easygoing energy, that kind of behavior could not have felt very comfortable. And because it was uncomfortable, it may have created exactly what the movie needed. At that point, Will Smith was not just playing a rookie being looked down on. He may have genuinely felt like a younger actor being kept at arm's length by a seasoned veteran. That is why the mix of frustration, eagerness to prove himself, and joking around to break the ice in those early scenes feels so real. That is what makes this story stick. A lot of people assume on-screen chemistry comes from actors being close in real life. But Men in Black seems to have worked almost in the opposite way. Here, that early mismatch between the two became fuel for the relationship between Agent K and Agent J. One of them is like an old machine, sealed off and ruled by discipline. The other is a loud, restless burst of new energy that is hard to control. If they had been completely comfortable with each other from the start, that sense of friction might have been much weaker. And that detail is exactly what makes people curious when they look back at the film now. Was the tension we feel in those early scenes just good acting, or were real emotions making their way straight onto the screen? If that is true, then this is more than just an interesting behind-the-scenes story. It also shows that sometimes what creates an iconic on-screen duo is not instant harmony, but real friction. And in the case of Men in Black, that carefully maintained distance may have helped create one of the most memorable sci-fi pairings of the 1990s. Number 3. The entire ending was rewritten right before release. Some movies are unforgettable because they open so well, but others live or die in their final 10 minutes. Men in Black was one of those movies. As hard as it is to believe, the ending audiences know today was not the ending the film originally planned to keep. The first version of the finale was reportedly seen as not strong enough, not satisfying enough, and most importantly, not explosive enough for a blockbuster like Men in Black. The issue was not just whether the ending was good or bad. The real issue was that the movie had already done such a strong job of building a world that felt weird, funny, and mysterious all at once. If the ending lost momentum, that entire feeling could collapse instantly. Audiences might still enjoy the characters, the atmosphere, and the idea of aliens hiding in everyday life. But if the final payoff was not sharp enough, the movie could easily have been remembered as a fun concept that never fully landed. That is why the filmmakers had to rework the ending in what was basically a race against time. They were not just polishing a few lines of dialogue. They were rethinking the entire way the story came to a close. How should the final creature be defeated? How far should the tension be pushed? What exact feeling should the audience walk out of the theater with? Those were the questions they had to solve at the last minute. What makes this so interesting is that the final version of the ending became a major reason Men in Black felt like a movie with real staying power. It was tighter, smarter, and gave the film exactly the kind of finish that made it feel not just fun, but fully in control of itself. And in the case of Men in Black, that ending may have helped save the reputation of the entire film. Number 4. Edgar the Bug was almost a forgettable villain. Looking back now, Edgar the Bug is the kind of villain that can still make people uneasy just from memory alone. The crooked way he moved, the way he talked like something inside him was trying to push its way out through human skin, and the increasingly warped, uncomfortable look of his body all made him one of the strangest images in Men in Black. But what is hard to believe is that this character almost did not leave that kind of impression at all. The original version of Edgar was reportedly much closer to a more familiar kind of alien monster, something more obviously insect-like, visually strange, but not truly distinctive. The problem was that this type of design may have worked in plenty of other sci-fi movies, but it was not right for Men in Black. This film did not need a creature that was only scary. It needed something gross, funny, and unsettling all at once. In other words, the villain did not just need to be memorable. He had to fit the bizarre, half-serious, half-offbeat world the movie was creating. That is when the most important idea came in. Instead of making the bug look like a fully exposed creature, they turned it into something that felt like a monster trapped inside a human body. That was what made Edgar so much more disturbing. The audience was not just looking at a bad guy. They were looking at a body being pulled out of shape, as if human skin were just a badly fitted disguise. That feeling was what truly brought the character to life. What makes it so interesting is that a single creative change in design may have ended up saving the entire villain. If Edgar had stayed closer to the original version, he probably would have felt like just another monster and faded away. But in the version the movie finally chose, Edgar became the kind of supporting villain strange enough to stay stuck in people's minds long after the film was over. Number 5. Will Smith improvised some of the movie's most famous lines. Will Smith did not just play Agent J. He gave the character an extra spark of life through his improvisation. Because when people look back at Men in Black, they do not just remember the aliens, the neuralizer, or the black suits. They also remember the way Agent J could open his mouth and instantly give a scene rhythm, energy, and that feeling that no one knew what was coming next. What made it work was that many of his standout lines did not feel like dialogue that had been polished too carefully in advance. They sounded like they were being born right in the moment, exactly the way someone would react if they were thrown into a crazy world like this and still had enough speed, confidence, and swagger not to get swallowed by it. That is what made Agent J so different from the usual rookie character. He was not there just to ask questions so the audience could understand what was happening. He made the entire chaos feel funnier, livelier, and far more memorable. That is also why this role feels so hard to replace. If every line Agent J spoke had been too scripted, too safe, and too smooth, the character might still have worked, but he would have lost that very specific spark that made it feel like he was actually living inside the moment. Will Smith had a very rare kind of energy. He could turn a reaction into entertainment, turn surprise into personality, and turn an ordinary exchange into something people remembered. What is interesting is that this improvisational edge helped Men in Black keep such a distinctive rhythm. The movie already had a strange and clever concept, but without the energy bursting out of Agent J, it easily could have felt flatter and far less electric. Number 6. The Men in Black headquarters set nearly turned into a disaster. What would happen if the place used to film one of the most iconic settings in Men in Black was not nearly as safe as it looked? It sounds like something that would only happen in a movie. But the Men in Black headquarters, the location that gave the film so much of its mystery, coolness, and sleek style, was reportedly placed in a genuinely dangerous situation behind the scenes. That set was built inside an old aircraft hangar. While the crew was working there, they reportedly discovered that the structure had serious problems. In other words, what audiences saw on screen as a secret headquarters that felt polished, controlled, and almost untouchable was, in real life, a space that may have posed an actual risk if things had gone any further. What makes this story stand out is that it shows how Men in Black was not nearly as smooth behind the scenes as it looked on screen. Just the fact that a major set had safety issues was enough to throw off the shooting schedule, the budget, and the mood of the production. But more than that, if something had actually gone wrong while filming was underway, the consequences would have gone far beyond a simple production delay. The more you look back on it, the more it feels true that the shinier a movie looks on the outside, the more chaos may have been hiding behind it. And Men in Black was clearly one of those cases. Number 7. Vincent D'Onofrio's role led to a health scare. When people look at Edgar the Bug on screen, most of them just see a villain who is weird, gross, and a little funny in that very Men in Black kind of way. But what made the character unforgettable was not just the makeup or the performance. It was also the fact that Vincent D'Onofrio pushed his body pretty far to create that deeply off feeling, and the price he paid for it was not small. To make Edgar look like a body being swollen, weighed down, and gradually distorted by something inside it, D'Onofrio reportedly gained a significant amount of weight for the role. On screen, that made the character look deeply uncomfortable and unnatural, as if the human skin were nothing more than a shell being pulled out of its original shape. But in real life, it did not stop at appearance. Rapid weight gain is always risky, especially when the body does not have time to adjust. Most people who watch Men in Black remember Edgar because he was so bizarre, so strange, and so unlike anything else in the movie. Very few realize that behind that look was a process that reportedly triggered a real health scare for the actor. In other words, what looked disturbing on screen nearly turned into something disturbing in real life. That is why, looking back now, Edgar feels like more than just a visually striking villain. He is also the kind of role that exposes something unsettling about Hollywood itself. The stranger and more unforgettable the transformation looks on screen, the more likely it is that a very real physical cost was paid behind the scenes. Number 8. Linda Fiorentino was not the original choice for Laurel. Linda Fiorentino now feels almost inseparable from Laurel in Men in Black, a character sharp enough, smart enough, and steady enough not to get swallowed up by the two very strong energies of Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. But what many people do not know is that she was not the first choice for the role. That means even a character who seems like such a natural fit for the movie actually came through a pretty unexpected turn behind the scenes. What makes this interesting is not just the casting switch itself, but the fact that Laurel was the kind of role that could easily fade into the background if the wrong actress played it. She had to walk into a world full of men, full of secrets, full of fast dialogue, and a lot of pressure to hold her own. If she were played too softly, Laurel would feel weak. If she were played too forcefully, the character could start to feel strained. Linda Fiorentino found a very rare balance. She was cool without feeling empty, sharp without overplaying it, and convincing enough that the audience believed Laurel really belonged in that world. That is why the fact that the role did not belong to her at first makes the story even more intriguing. Because sometimes one casting choice can completely change the feel of a character. And in Men in Black, Laurel clearly became one of those cases where the person who came in later turned out to be the right one all along. Number 9. Agent K's cold style wasn't entirely acting. Tommy Lee Jones shaped Agent K with a cold, dry, almost emotionless presence, and that is exactly what made the character stand out. But what makes it even more interesting is that this style was reportedly not entirely the result of acting choices alone. While filming Men in Black, he was said to be dealing with dental problems and was in pain for a period of time. That directly affected his facial expressions, the way he spoke, and how much emotion he could show on screen. And strangely enough, that may have made Agent K fit the role even better. His stiff, restrained, always slightly distant presence did not just make the character feel more mysterious. It also made every reaction sharper, cleaner, and more controlled. Looking back, it is one of those unusual cases where a very real limitation in real life may have accidentally created exactly what the character needed. In Men in Black, the discomfort Tommy Lee Jones was dealing with off-camera may have helped turn Agent K into the cold, unforgettable icon audiences still remember today. Number 10. Frank the Pug was actually played by multiple dogs. Frank may have only been a small supporting character in Men in Black, but he is the kind of character audiences remember for a long time because he was so strange and so funny. What makes it even more interesting is that the wisecracking pug was not played by just one dog. Behind Frank were several different dogs, each one handling a specific kind of action, from standing still to moving, to scenes that needed the right expression on camera. It may sound like a small detail, but it shows just how meticulous Hollywood can be, even with a side character who appears only briefly. Audiences only saw one Frank who felt natural and full of personality, but behind that was a whole process of combining multiple dogs to create the illusion of a single character. And that makes Frank even more fascinating, because even a funny little role that seems simple on screen was built through a much more complicated process than most people would ever expect. Number 11. The Men in Black theme song was made at the last minute. Now when people think of Men in Black, many of them do not just remember the movie, they also instantly remember its unmistakable theme song. But what most people do not realize is that the song was completed under extreme time pressure. In other words, something that later became a huge part of the film's identity was not the result of a long, comfortable process. It came out of a last-minute rush. That makes the story even more interesting, because a theme song often helps audiences remember the feeling of a movie. In the case of Men in Black, the song did not just promote the film. It carried the same cool, playful, slightly cocky energy that Agent J brought to the screen. And because it was made so close to the deadline, it proves something fascinating. Sometimes the most polished and iconic things are born when everything is happening at the last possible moment. Number 12. Several expensive neuralizers mysteriously vanished. The neuralizer is one of the most iconic props in Men in Black. The second audiences see that small device, they instantly think of secret agents, aliens, and memories being wiped away in a single flash. But what makes this story even stranger is that at one point, several high-value neuralizers reportedly disappeared from the production under mysterious circumstances. This was not just a case of a few ordinary props going missing. In Men in Black, the neuralizer was practically part of the film's visual identity. It was important to the story, but it was also one of the first things people associated with the movie. That is exactly why the idea of several of them vanishing makes the behind-the-scenes story feel less like normal filmmaking and more like a real-life mystery. And the more you think about it, the more it fits Men in Black perfectly. Even off-screen, the strangest thing was the one that disappeared right in front of everyone. Number 13. Men in Black's look came from a scrapped idea. The visual style of Men in Black may not have been created entirely from scratch. What makes that so interesting is that much of the film's signature look, from its retro-futuristic feel, to the secret headquarters, to that cold, sleek, polished design, was reportedly connected to an earlier idea that had once been left unfinished. When people talk about Men in Black, they do not just remember the story or the cast. They remember the movie's entire world. A world that felt classic and modern at the same time, mysterious but still undeniably cool, and distinctive enough that you could recognize it at a glance. And the strange part is that the foundation of that look may have come from something that was never fully used the first time. That is what makes this secret so interesting. It shows that sometimes an abandoned idea does not really disappear. It is just waiting for the right movie to turn it into something iconic. And in the case of Men in Black, the look that became the film's signature may have started with an idea no one expected to survive. If Men in Black was part of your childhood too, hit like, subscribe, and join me as we uncover more of Hollywood's strangest behind-the-scenes secrets.